Hello, everyone. My name is Russell Karp, Vice President at DataArt, and welcome to episode 3 of DataArt Conversations with Sports Betting Industry Leaders. Today, we are lucky enough to be joined by Seth Schorr, CEO of Fifth Street Gaming. And as always, we have Matt Schatz and Kevin Twitchell, who are advisors here at DataArt. So just to get into it, introduce himself.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for having me today. Excited to chat with you guys. It's been a pleasure getting to know you over the past couple of years. So my name is Seth Schorr. I'm the CEO of Fifth Street Gaming. My core business is gambling and hospitality. Good old-fashioned brick-and-mortar casinos, restaurants, sports bars. I've had the opportunity of developing casinos and working in casinos internationally, mostly in Las Vegas. Spent some time in Macau back about 20 years ago. Got to open up a casino in Atlantic City back in 2018. So that's my, that's where I like to begin. That's the that's my main background and where my experience started. But over the past 7 years or so, I've also had a pretty significant focus on anything innovative in the gambling space. So whether that's esports betting, which our company is definitely a pioneer, skill-based gaming. I have a skill-based gaming company called Super Money Games, or commercial streaming solutions, which has our product Bettor View that brings sports betting, odds, analytics, and promotions into venues throughout the country. Those are all technology companies that enhance the in-venue experience, that provide more value to our partners and guests.
Excellent. Thank you for that. And BettorView is something that we want to touch upon here in the conversation. Okay, Seth, so to start things off, what is your current vision of the sports betting landscape?
Thank you. So when I look at sports betting today, I do like to take a step back and look at iGaming as a whole. My experience in interactive gaming started in 1999. I had the opportunity at the time to work with Steve Wynn and create a company with him called Worldwide Win. We created a platform, an online casino platform. Needless to say, at the time, it was a little ahead of the curve, both from mainly from a regulatory perspective. And so, of course, we had to put that project on hold. But for the past 20 years, I've been anticipating the time where North America, and specifically the United States, caught up to our counterparts in Europe and started to offer iGaming. Clearly, that started in New Jersey many years ago, but from a national perspective, over the past 2 years this summer, with the repeal of PASPA, I see a path forward to iGaming via sports betting. Sports betting in and of itself is very exciting. I think specifically from a media, sports, and entertainment perspective. As a business and as a casino operator, I'm certainly more attracted to the margins of iGaming, but sports betting is not only a path to get there, it's a very interesting and engaging experience to build loyalty and engagement with our customers and guests.
Do you see going the other way, or onboarding iGaming customers from a sports betting perspective? So, for example, Betfair, who's one of our clients, they're kind of following the path that you described. So they're on TV all the time with commercials for their Betfair casino, but there's a little link. Hey, if you want to do sports betting, you just click on this link and then you're in a completely different world. Do you see anybody trying the opposite, going from sports betting to iGaming?
Yes, no. So let me clarify. I think that's very much what we are doing today. I think that there are certain casino companies that their long-term strategy is to engage people online through sports betting, but ultimately convert them into a casino customer.
Yeah, makes sense.
I think the jury is out in terms of what mobile sports betting, or sports betting in general, what it looks like as a standalone business. Don't forget, just a couple of years ago, before June of 2018, the only legal place to place a wager in the United States was in Nevada. And I can tell you with 100% certainty that almost every casino in Nevada saw sports betting as a nice to have, as an amenity, certainly from a tourist perspective, a way to create excitement in the casino around Super Bowl and March Madness. I think locals like stations and others use sports betting as a way to get more trips from their local guests. But I can't speak for everybody, but I'm pretty certain as an industry, we saw sports betting as a low margin business. If it broke even, you were thrilled, right? Nobody was spending a ton of time, money, and resources reinventing sports betting. We all launched mobile apps. I think they were mediocre at best. But what we saw in New Jersey in the second half of 2018 and 2019, companies like FanDuel and DraftKings that were really technology companies at their core who truly were innovative. And I cannot say that the casino operators in Nevada were innovative in sports betting, certainly innovative in other ways. But we saw these companies that came from outside the traditional casino space reinvent sports betting, focus on in-game betting, which increased bet stimulation, right? So like all gambling, more handle equals more win for all games, and increased prop betting, which to me I equate to like a side bet on a blackjack game. We all know that, the player likes it, but the odds are better for the house. They created a stickier mobile experience. They created sexier brands. They created relationships with media companies. I mean, it was just awesome. And I think that specifically DraftKings and FanDuel took the more traditional casino operators by surprise. And then we saw, by the second half of 2019 into 2020, obviously COVID made 2020 a tricky year, but we saw the rest, we saw the big boys playing catch up. Now, a lot of them have, caught up. But it's interesting to see how someone from outside of the core industry was really able to disrupt sports betting.
Yeah.
And when you think about that success that DraftKings and FanDuel had and what it meant for the traditional operators, which of these might best apply? It gets more money from existing customers. It actually goes wider and gets more mainstream people that weren't sports betting are now sports betting because they like the look, feel, and technology of those apps, and or it makes higher margin from the same amount of handle. Well, let's divide that in two. The one is the increased handle come from existing customers now betting more because it's easy, it's fun, there's prop betting, versus you're actually bringing new people to the party and kind of people that were maybe iGamers but not sports gamblers that casino are now doing it. And then separate are the margins higher with all the mobile sports betting than what it was in the traditional?
Yeah, 100%. Let me answer that. So the first question first. I think it's a combination of both, but definitely the latter part, meaning that they've widened the net. They've made sports betting more attractive, but they also changed the game. Now, the fact that we're dealing in a regulated environment through mobile apps is also an incredibly different experience than betting with your friends or a bookmaker. Put aside the fact that it's illegal, which of course, as a casino licensee, I frown upon, but the experience is different. You can't call your bookie in the middle of the game and place a bet every 5 minutes. That's not going to work. So the technology, changed the way that we bet, more in-game betting, the marketing, right? These are marketing companies with awesome social media and flash sales over text messaging and emails with awesome, fun, exciting prop bets, which first and foremost is a better experience, right? It's just more fun. So let's focus on that for a minute. The gambler enjoys it more. You just made the experience better. And gambling should be entertainment first and foremost. So if you're giving me a more exciting experience, allowing me to take 20, 30, 40 bucks and make a bunch of bets throughout the game, makes the game more exciting, and I don't win a penny, that's a win-win, right? The fact that, I think I'm smart in the house and could make some money, certainly is a part of the attraction as well. So that definitely increased the handle. And those prop bets do have a higher margin, right? We, in the traditional business, saw, sports betting as a 5% hold. And, now we're starting to see numbers in the low teens, which starts to look a lot like table games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, interesting.
With some table games.
Kevin, do you have anything to add?
I want to kind of jump into to BettorView. When we first met you was in New Jersey, and it was KonekTV, and I was most impressed by you at that convention because here you were coming from the casino world, and you were talking about technology, you were embracing all this change, you were talking about iGaming, and it, from someone coming from the media and entertainment space, it was, we've seen this movie before. We've seen it in music and we've seen it in film. It's like, okay, here's an industry in change, and here's a guy that's involved in the change, and you weren't fighting what was going on. So can you take us, like, what was the idea for KonekTV and BettorView coming from your world, and how's it going?
Yeah, sure. So the foundation of what is now BettorView started about 4 years ago. And the original vision and the pain point that we were looking to solve was bringing streaming content into venues, sports bars, airports, casinos, arenas around the world. There was a very heavy focus on esports. Having had many years of experience in esports, and having a lot of venue operators come to me asking for advice as to how they can get into esports, my answer was then and still is today, just showing esports on your screens is a great first step. So we created a platform to do that. We still do offer that service, as well as other streaming sports, including UFC. We were the exclusive technology provider of UFC. But in 2018, as we saw that PASPA was inevitably going to be repealed, and we were going to see this great proliferation of sports gambling throughout the country, we made a business decision to focus all of our efforts on sports betting, which is why we went through a rebrand from KonekTV, a more general idea of connecting people to streaming technologies, to BettorView, creating that better view for our bettors throughout the country. I knew there was an opportunity to create a platform that first and foremost allowed venues to plant a flag and identify themselves as being sports friendly by offering this, sportsbook light experience. But I also knew that sportsbook operators were about to enter into highly competitive regional environments where initially customer acquisition was going to be everything. And then ultimately bet stimulation, gaining, market share and a large percentage of wallet will all be important parts of their plan. So providing our sportsbook clients a channel in venue to acquire customers, I felt was very attractive. It did and still does not exist in the market. And that's ultimately why we created BettorView and the product that we're refining each and every day today.
That's right. And what are you finding? Are you finding, like, from the data that you're getting, from it, are you learning stuff and being able to share? And is this really in that customer acquisition? Is this finding to be a big tool for your clients, like by being able to share that data and say, hey, look what you're seeing here, right? It's right in front of you.
It is. I mean, look, there's no question. What we've learned is the television screens are a great anchor. And we have seen a lot of conversion of people looking at our screens and either clicking on our vanity URLs or QR codes and signing up with our sportsbook clients. But what we've also found is in working with sports bars throughout the country, both mom and pop, independent bars, and major chains like Hooters, Wings, etc., Bolero, many, many others, we've also found that we're able to work with them holistically throughout their guest experience. So you have the screens, we have brand ambassadors, we have in-venue collateral. So we're able to be a technology and marketing provider in venue for our sportsbook partners, of which our technology is a critically important piece, but ultimately just one piece. Where we've installed our screens in major arenas and stadiums around the country, providing value for the sports team that may also already have a relationship with the sportsbook partner, but we're able to help them extract even more value from that partnership.
And how are there a lot of legal restrictions in that you're fighting against as you evolve, or?
We're not. No, we haven't had to fight against anything. I'm a big fan of regulation, and so
Right.
We are, of course, licensed in every jurisdiction that we operate. I mean, I'm personally licensed in probably 24 jurisdictions based on my different companies. So that is just part of the process. Following regulations is not something that comes very naturally to our company. And I think initially we weren't fighting regulations. Like any disruptive business, it's not a fight, but it's certainly a challenge introducing new technologies so that we can demonstrate how it's additive to the venue, to the guest, and the sportsbook partner. Fortunately, we've now been doing this long enough. We have enough clear insights and examples that the sales pitch is certainly much easier. We have a best-in-class product. So our screens, while they were designed for sports bars, they're in major casinos around the country. Every single BetMGM casino from Nevada to New Jersey, I believe we're about to be installed in Michigan and Mississippi, has our screens in their sports book, right? So that in and of itself demonstrates that this platform we created is not only for sports bars, but creates a better experience in the sports books. I don't think I mentioned it when you asked the earlier question in terms of why we created the platform. But what I saw as an operator is we spoke a language in sports betting that still doesn't make sense to most people. To this day, if you go into a sports bar or a casino and you ask anybody if minus 180 is good or bad, they're gonna, at a minimum, you're getting a pause and likely gonna get, the deer in the headlights look from 85% of the room.
Yeah.
Maybe if you go to the sports book at like Circa, you might get, a place where there's very, very savvy, mature bettors, you might get a better response. But for the most part, people have no idea. Why do we speak in a language? So odds are basically pricing, right? It's our menu. Why would we display a menu in a language and currency that people don't understand? Then you throw in the fact that there's so many options that the menu is really messy, right? You go into a sports book and you just see these rows and rows and rows of, odds, which are intimidating, hard to find, not attractive. So I'm in the restaurant business. That's like fails every 101 101 menu design. First of all, you got to make the menu easy to read. You got to use nice descriptive adjectives. You got to, come up with the right price point. I mean, these are all very obvious tools. Why wouldn't we do that in sports betting? Make it easy to understand. Push the odds that you want to push. You should have specials, right? A menu should have specials. It should have promotions. So that's what BettorView is. It's a way to show odds in a much easier way to digest. So we came up with something very simple. At this point, I thought we'd be copied by everybody, and I'm sure we will, but speaking in win probability, right? So company A having an 82% chance of beating company B is a very easy thing to understand. But then what's super cool is throughout the game, watching the 82% go up and down based on how the in-game odds change, based on obvious things like people scoring points or possession or other things that impact the odds. That's a great experience, especially if we want to push in-game betting, right? You see the odds change. That's a great time to place new bets. We offer promotions in a very cool way. We have a feature called flash sales, right? So all of a sudden there's a countdown clock and it counts down from 3 minutes. And then there's a message that says, for the next 3 minutes, place this wager and get a 25% odds boost. Or if we're in a restaurant, buy a bucket of wings in the next hour and get a free pitcher of beer, or vice versa. These are technology tactics that we use digitally, but nobody's ever done that in venue. So I think what's put our company in a unique place to, first of all, identify the needs, create the platform, and now execute is the fact that at our core, we're operators, right? And I'm an operator of a wide range of types of different properties, right? From a small independent mom and pop sports bar to medium-sized casinos, and we're a technology company. So I think we're in a unique place, which is why we've created a unique product and one that just gets better every day.
And hopefully will get used more in the new year when we're all back in bars again.
Yeah, 2020 was a kick in the pants for all of us. First and foremost, as long as everybody was healthy, that's all that really mattered. But I have different businesses. They were all impacted in different ways. The hardest thing for me has always been how it impacted our team members. So tough. From a BettorView perspective, the silver lining was we had a development team that on March 17th, when sports betting stopped and bars ultimately closed throughout the country, our team was able to focus on a B2C platform that would help, once again, the sports teams and the sportsbook operators engage fans at home. So we created BettorView Live. And we started developing it at the end of the summer. We launched it, I think, right at the end of the year and really got going early this year in January. But it's a fan engagement platform. It's a video conference platform, much like the one we're on today. The difference being we have those live odds and analytics built into the feed. We have a chat window, a Twitter feed, and then most importantly, 3 different areas where our sportsbook partners advertise their promotions. So as you're in a cool virtual watch party, or what we call a betcast, which is a simulcast to a game, and you're hearing really interesting professional sports bettors talking about different betting opportunities, you're seeing betting promotions, you click through, and we bring you right to our sportsbook partners.
And so for that, do you integrate with exclusive partners or amongst your multiple customers, who kind of gets access to be in that betcast?
Yeah, great question. So all of our technology and relationships, we see ourselves as Switzerland. We work with everybody. At this point, I do believe we have one contract or another with at least 7 of the major sportsbook operators. So like any business, when it comes to exclusivity, it just depends on the opportunity and what the event is. So sometimes it's exclusive. Sometimes we work with multiple partners.
And you brought up an interesting point about how intimidating like some of these offerings are. Like if you walk into a sports book, you grab one of those sheets. I mean, it's small print. You have crazy odds all over the place. Like for a novice bettor, you don't know what's good and what's not good. And the shift that I guess you have done at BettorView, I've seen on some of the sites where they simplify it. They just say, will this team win by 2 or more points or not? Forget about -1.5, +1.5. They just make it simple English. And I see that more and more, like across ESPN and CBS Sports. They really simplify it to kind of the newer bettors. I think it just makes it easier to acquire new clients that way.
Yeah. No, it's much better. Once again, I think that the language we spoke originated from an industry that didn't focus on the lowest common denominator, but focused on the savvy bettor. So if you're if you're the sports book director in any one of the Las Vegas casinos 3 years ago, you were focused. First of all, the casino was filled with savvy bettors because we're in Las Vegas and gambling's been legal for decades, and there literally are professional bettors here. Oh, and by the way, especially if you're at a big casino, those professional bettors were the one that impacted your bottom line. That's who you focused on. There wasn't a big movement to acquire new customers. Quite frankly, even those people that took a journey to Las Vegas during March Madness, they probably did know a thing or two about betting. I mean, they were literally taking a trip just to place bets. Yeah. So, I mean, educated bettors exist, but that's like 1% of the market. That's who we cater to. And now the industry got hip to the fact that the rest of the country, it's a much bigger pie. Like any gambler, you always, I'm not going to tell, I'm not going to give any insight, but, you want to cater to your, to the average customer and not your sharp bettor.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, which, it still surprises me how many states haven't made sports betting legal, just, you stating that fact, right? I mean, it's such a big piece of pie, and at the end of the day, states are benefiting from it, and especially, after what happened during 2020, and now we're into 2021, it's still kind of trickling along here. I thought 2020 would be a much more active period of legalizing sports betting in the states that don't offer it yet, but they really haven't taken that step.
Look, it's pretty good. I think I'd like to think that we're by the end of this year in far more states. Gambling's a tricky thing. I've grown up in this industry. I've been involved in the gambling industry my entire life. Literally grew up in it. Living at the Golden Nugget in downtown Las Vegas at the age of 7. Was had a front row seat watching Mr. Wynn and my dad, Mark Schorr, change the industry. We lived in Atlantic City, Las Vegas, Macau. Remember the days of trying to get gambling legalized in different states like Connecticut. Remember very clearly in the early 90s when riverboat gaming and Native American casinos popped up. So I'm very, very, very familiar with how the United States of America has had an identity crisis with gambling forever.
Yeah.
Now it's changing. The stigma today of gambling is completely different from where it was 10 years ago, certainly 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. And, it's still there. I can give you many examples where states that are even legalizing some form of gambling still have an identity crisis. You still have parts of the state that are fighting against it. So it's better, but it's going to take some time. Now, sports betting, to me, we saw a little bit of hypocrisy 4, 5, 6 years ago with DFS, right? So all of a sudden, you see DraftKings and FanDuel being invested by Disney and all over the news and, not the news, all over the TV with commercials. And, that's when I think, in some senses, I think that helped our country realize that it's out there, it's sports betting. Let's legalize and regulate it. Let's make sure we have measures in place to identify, responsible gambling policy and issues. But I'm glad we're finally seeing the progress that we're seeing.
Yeah, Yeah, it's definitely moving along, and I think everybody is happy to see that. Go ahead.
Sorry, it's a little bit of a random question, but as you see all this proliferate, do you see loyalty programs becoming an important part of capturing share of wallet as an engagement tool, as more users come to the park and they have more options and they're making kind of frequent and repeated decisions about where to put their money? One might think that all of a sudden loyalty programs could be a big deal. And in this context, they could really include a lot of interesting elements for venues, more than just, place $100 and get an extra $10 in your account. You could go to so many creative places with loyalty programs when you're dealing with venues. Do you find that when you're talking to your venue customers, does that come in the mix?
Yeah, great. That's a great question. So, yes, for all the reasons you just described, loyalty programs are incredible. And what you just touched on, it also depends on what that currency can be used on. So if you're a mobile-only sportsbook provider, you can only do so much with your points. Now, you're probably going to go partner with people so that you can bring in more inventory for people to use those points to acquire things. But a 360-degree look at your loyalty program is a huge advantage that a company like BetMGM or Caesars William Hill has. So absolutely, Penn National Gaming for sure. Having a holistic loyalty program is critical. What we're finding with BettorView is, as we're working with venue partners, one of the benefits that we're seeing to the venue operator is by offering specials with food and beverage for people who either sign up or come into your venue because of a sportsbook offer. If we give them free wings, oftentimes can't give free alcohol, so we don't do that. But here are free wings. That's just an added benefit to the guest and to the venue operator. And quite frankly, the guest likes that. I'm, casino marketing 101. It's something I'm very, very familiar with. And it's oftentimes interesting what is most attractive to your user, right? What's going to get them to either make a visit to your casino, use your app over another person's app. Cashback. Yeah, some people like cash. Some people prefer goods and services and merchandise. One thing I can tell you that undeniably everybody likes, and this is with airlines, this is with retail, and certainly with gambling, is access. People love access. People want to feel special. People want to feel that I'm getting something that you are not getting, that I'm getting to skip the line. And even very wealthy people who have a lot of money, who can certainly pay for things, want to know that they're getting special access. So that's something we're seeing. Betting lounges pop up in stadiums around the country. Okay, so now today we're sort of just using those lounges as a way of introducing sports betting to fans in arena. But imagine a year or two down the road, if you want to be in that MGM betting lounge, you need to be a platinum loyalty. You need to be at the platinum tier of their M Life loyalty program, or Noir as they call their highest tier. Right now, maybe you're getting there based on your sports betting. That's what we know that business. Yes, I think that's to answer your question. Loyalty programs are critically important.
And we're very appreciative every time here today, Seth. And just to wrap things up, how do you see the next, I don't know, let's say 2 years? I don't know if we can go as far as 5 years out in the future, play out in the sports betting world. We assume more states will come online, through the next several years. Do you see any other potential shifts or innovations happening in the space?
Yeah, no, I think more states are online. Probably some consolidation. There are a lot of players right now. It's highly competitive. Wish everybody the best of luck. Don't want to see anybody not make it, but you might see a little bit of consolidation. We might see players focus more regionally. So some operators may just focus on a region. We may see more niche, platforms focusing on niche markets. Definitely, we'll see even more of an integration of media. We're already seeing that to a degree. Bally, Sinclair, MGM, Yahoo, PointsBet, Universal, NBC. I think we see that even more so. A lot more integration of sports betting and media. And then, ultimately, I think we see more iGaming opportunities in the next couple of years.
Yeah, I think, with the integration between media and sports betting, I think Fox might have been one of the first ones, right, to have their own sports book or whoever they're using for their operator. But yeah, Fox Bet is integrated with a lot of the programming, which is interesting.
100%. That should have been on the top of the list, but absolutely, it's the best example, and I think we see more of that.
Yeah.
And what do you see, whether it's that integration of media and betting or just from a venue perspective, what do you see as the biggest technology challenges for these companies in the next couple of years?
Look, I think we're solving a lot of the challenges. So the initial challenge was it's technology related, but really payment processing, digital wallets, the ability to download the app, deposit remotely. Even states that allowed it, like New Jersey, 2018 was terrible. But they quickly solved it, right? And companies like Sightline, and even in some jurisdictions, I believe PayPal is being used. So we're seeing it being solved. Creating, I think there's going to be certain winners that not only create mobile apps that are easier to use, but also integrate media into their app. So just make a stickier experience. So I don't know that these are challenges. They're really more opportunities. As I mentioned earlier, I'm a major proponent and advocate of esports betting. So I do see us, because we're now a mobile and online focused industry, there's a wider net to cast and an easier, more access to gamers. And I think esports betting continues to slowly become a significant sport that is bet on. As a matter of fact, here in Nevada, we have drafted legislation to form the country's first esports regulatory body, the Nevada Esports Commission. Something that I'm personally a huge supporter of and very excited about, which will be a path to regulating esports betting much easier than what has to happen today.
That's going to be interesting to watch. And I think you were talking about that actually in New Jersey when we first met you. Something that we see what, maybe in the next time we get together, we'll do an esports panel and probably talk about crypto and where that's going to play in, because I think that's going to be really exciting. I think that's definitely the next chapter.
Count me in.
Great. Well, we've taken a lot of your time today. Russell, this is great. Thank you for putting us all on the line together.
Yep, absolutely. And Seth, thank you very much for your time again. We really appreciate it. A lot of excellent insights during this conversation. So thank you for that.
All right. Thanks, guys. Next time, maybe it'll be in person.
Yeah,
That's
we hope.
Great.
All right.